She looked at him like he was missing something. Not something obvious, not a mistake, or a flaw, or even a weakness. Just something. He spoke, he joked. He tried, but still something. That look, the one that says, "You don't get it," and he didn't. He didn't know that no matter how charming he was, how logical, how generous, it wouldn't be enough, not for her. And it wasn't about him being wrong. It was about him not knowing what she wasn't saying, because she wasn't going to say it. Not now, not ever, she couldn't. Not because she didn't want to, but because the answer wasn't clear, not even to herself. Sigmund Freud spent decades trying to answer one question. What does a woman want? He asked it half as a joke, half as a warning, but buried in his work, hidden beneath outdated terms and misunderstood theories, was a chilling truth. Women want what they cannot say, what they're not allowed to say. And that truth isn't just uncomfortable. It changes everything. When you look past the criticisms, past the reputation, past the surface-level mockery of Freud's theories, you find something most people miss. He wasn't wrong, he was just too early. His theories about repression, unconscious desire, symbolic satisfaction, and emotional conflict are more relevant now than ever. Because what women want isn't simple. It isn't what they post online, what they say in surveys, or what they tell their partners. What they want lies beneath the surface, buried in emotion, memory, silence, and contradiction. From the time they're young, women are taught to be pleasing, to smile, to be desirable but not too forward, to want but not to say. And somewhere in that tangle of expectations and silence, their true desire begins to split, hidden not only from others but from themselves. Freud understood that better than most psychologists ever did. He said that the mind is not just what we think. It's what we fear to think, what we repress, what we bury. And in women, he believed that repression was shaped not by biology alone, but by society. They were told what to be, and that created a kind of internal war. A war between what's expected and what's felt, between how they act and what they secretly crave. Desire, Freud said, is not just about attraction. It's about fulfillment of a wish, often a wish you don't even know you have. Women may say they want kindness, stability, a good man, but what if, somewhere deeper, the desire isn't for peace, but for intensity, not for comfort, but for fire? Freud's theory of unconscious desire suggested that what's spoken isn't always what's true. And that's why so many men feel like they're doing everything right and still losing, because the answer isn't found in behavior. It's found in the gap between the spoken and the silent, between what she says and what she shows. Freud didn't claim to have mapped the entire mind, but he knew the signs. He knew that what women secretly want isn't obvious, not even to themselves. They want to feel something real, something uncontrollable, something that disrupts the routine and breaks the pattern. It's not always about being in control. It's about feeling alive. That's why a man who triggers her emotion, whether it's mystery, fear, passion, or longing, often connects deeper than the man whom plays it safe. Freud understood this. He called it the return of the repressed. Emotions that were pushed down, denied silence, they come back. And they don't return in polite ways. They show up in dreams, in fantasies, in irrational choices, in sudden shifts. She may not admit she's bored, but she'll start distancing. She may not say she craves danger, but she'll lean toward chaos. The repression creates confusion, and the confusion feeds desire. Women are not confused because they are irrational. They are confused because they are trained to suppress what they really want. And when they do, those suppressed desires begin to twist. Freud believed that much of what we call love is actually transference, projecting hidden needs onto others. A woman might seek protection, but desire domination. She might want approval but crave to rebel. And so the conflict begins. She seeks stability but runs from it. She wants affection but tests it. She says she's fine but pulls away. It isn't manipulation, it's unconscious tension. Freud didn't see women as mysterious because they're flawed. He saw them as mysterious because they were forced to live behind masks. The mask of being good, the mask of being wanted, the mask of being enough. And beneath that mask is where the real desire lives. What she wants is not the same every day, not consistent, not even rational. What she wants depends on what she's suppressing. what she's tired of hiding, what she's craving but afraid to feel. That's why no answer ever satisfies for long, because the want isn't fixed. It moves, it evolves, and it resists being named. To Freud, this was not a weakness. It was human, deeply human. He believed that women, just like men, are driven by powerful unconscious forces. But unlike men, their desire is more often shaped by restriction, by the need to appear, to behave, to perform. The more she suppresses, the more the unconscious twists, and that's where the real longing lives. You can't understand a woman by only listening to what she says. You have to watch what she avoids, what she changes the subject about, what she laughs off, what she doesn't post about. The unconscious is not loud, it's subtle. It hides in silence. And Freud's genius was in showing us that silence speaks. What women secretly want isn't some universal formula. It's not always sex, it's not always power, it's not always love, but it is always layered, symbolic, emotional. It's shaped by pain, fantasy, repression, and need. Freud was ridiculed for saying young girls had desires, but he wasn't promoting perversion. He was saying, we can't ignore early emotional development. Girls are taught to be desirable, not to desire. That changes everything. The suppression of female desire leads to internal conflict. She wants to be chosen but not possessed. She wants to be safe but not bored. She wants to be seen but not exposed. This contradiction is not hypocrisy. It's the result of a system that never allowed her to explore her wants fully. Freud said that what we want is often disguised. A woman may want emotional intensity, but seek it through drama. She may want attention but claim to want peace. She may want control but act submissive. The truth is buried beneath years of conditioning. What she wants is often what she's afraid of, and what she's afraid of is often what she can't admit. This doesn't mean women are playing games. It means desire is not logical. It's emotional, symbolic, and Freud's greatest insight was this: if you want to understand what a person truly wants, don't ask them, watch them. Observe what excites them, what they return to, what they react to emotionally. That's where the truth lives. Women want to be understood without having to explain. They want to feel without being judged. They want to explore without being shamed. And because these things are rare, they become secret wants, unspoken, unexplained but deeply felt. Freud's work showed us that desire isn't evil. It's misunderstood. The real danger is in pretending it doesn't exist, in demanding women always be rational, predictable, or nice. Desire doesn't work like that. It breaks rules, it whispers. It drives action when logic fails. Freud wasn't perfect. He got things wrong. But on the core truth, he was frighteningly accurate. What women want is not simple, not spoken, and not safe. It's hidden in the unconscious, and it takes courage to look for it, not just in them but in ourselves. He woke to the sound of her voice, not speaking to him but speaking aloud in her sleep. He crept closer to the bed, heart pounding. She murmured words he didn't recognize, a half-formed sentence trailing off into a sigh. In that moment, Freud's lesson stirred. The unconscious speaks most clearly in dreams. He froze, afraid that any movement would wake her. Carefully, he noted the cadence of her speech, urgency, then release, her brow furrowed, as though she chased something just beyond recall. When morning light crept through the curtains, she shifted and he slipped away, carrying fragments of her nocturnal confession. Later, over coffee, he asked, "Did you sleep well?" She smiled politely, eyes distant. He thought about mentioning her dream, but feared shattering her fragile trust. Freud wrote that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, yet sharing them can feel like exposing your soul. Instead, he listened to the day's small signals, how her posture straightened when a colleague praised her work, how she paused before answering messages from an old friend, how her favorite song, playing on the radio, made her brush her fingertips against the table, as if seeking solace. She agreed to take a walk with him in the park, a neutral setting. He thought a chance to talk, but as they wandered past the fountains and blossoms, he watched her gaze drift upward to the branches, to the birdsong, to everything except him. He felt the familiar tug of frustration, another silent sign he couldn't decipher. Then, without warning, she stopped by a statue of Psyche and Eros. She traced the marble curves with her eyes, her lips parting as though she wanted to whisper, He waited, she said nothing. He remembered Freud's idea of symbol, that the mind hides truth in metaphor. Psyche's yearning reach for eros. Was that her desire? To be pursued, to surrender, to risk everything for love. He ventured gently. What draws you to her story? She turned, startled, as if he'd read her mind. Her trust, she whispered. She believed he loved her. Without proof, she risked all on that belief. He nodded carefully. Do you ever feel you're risking something? She looked away. I risk more than I can bear. And suddenly he saw. Her fear of vulnerability mirrored Psyche's. Her hidden desire was not just for passion, but for faith, faith that someone would cherish her unguarded self. Freud would have called this an unconscious analogy, a projection of her inner struggle onto the myth. But for them it was real. He reached out, hesitated, then took her hand. She didn't pull away. Later that evening, he found her writing in her journal, an admission he never asked for, words she never spoke aloud. He read silently. I want to be free of my own mind. I want someone to tether me to reality when my desires spin me out of control. I want permission to feel everything without shame. He closed the book and sat beside her. No words, just presence. Freud believed that sometimes the analyst must be silent, allowing the patient to fill the space. He had become her unintended analyst, and in that silence, she no longer felt alone. Their bond shifted. It wasn't dramatic fireworks or sweeping romance. It was a quiet understanding, a shared respect for the hidden depths they both carried. He no longer chased her, and she no longer fled. They moved together, attuned to the unspoken. He realized then, uncovering what women secretly want isn't about solving a puzzle. It's about creating a space where secrecy loses its power, where repression dissolves in empathy. Freud didn't hand us a map of the female psyche. He handed us a compass, pointing toward the hidden territories of desire. She closed her journal and looked at him, her eyes unguarded. Thank you for listening, she said. He nodded, though the real thanks belonged to Freud, for teaching them both that the truest connection begins when we brave the silence. He stood beside her on the balcony, city lights glittering below, like a mirror to their own hidden depths. A cool breeze carried distant laughter, and the scent of night-blooming jasmine. She leaned against the railing, shoulders relaxed for the first time in days. He didn't speak. He remembered Freud's warning. Too much interpretation can suffocate a fragile truth. Instead, he offered companionship, silent, steady, unwavering. In that quiet, he felt their story come full circle. Earlier, she might have fled at the sight of raw vulnerability. Now she let herself tremble, feeling the enormity of trust she'd placed in him. Without a word, she reached out, and their hands found each other. No gestures grander than that, yet more profound than any declaration. She turned, voice soft. I feel seen. Not the words she once thought she wanted, grand poems, sweeping promises, but precisely the admission she needed to speak. Seen, understood, accepted. He replied with a gentle nod, recalling Freud's faith in the power of acknowledgement over analysis. He squeezed her hand, and in that touch, they both sensed the relief of repression lifting. Her past anxieties, her silent battles, were not erased, but they were shared now, and sharing itself was the remedy. Later, they sat in the dim glow of the living room, a record spinning softly in the background. She drew her journal onto her lap and began to write. He watched, not intruding. Her pen moved freely, as though unshackled. The words flowed, reflections on fear, desire, and the exhilaration of being known. When she finished, she closed the book and looked up at him. I didn't know I could want this, she said, voice trembling between relief and awe. That it was safe to want it. He smiled, remembering Freud's final lesson, that welcoming the unconscious, its fears and desires, does not break us. It makes us whole. Understanding what women secretly want isn't about mastering a formula. It's about creating a space where unspoken needs can emerge without judgment. She rested her head on his shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her. Outside, the city pulsed with life. Unseen stories unfolding in every apartment, every streetlight, just like theirs. Those stories were woven from hidden desires, repressed fears, and fleeting moments of connection. He whispered, "Thank you for trusting me." And she whispered back, "Thank you for listening." They didn't need more words. The night held their unspoken promise to honor the silence that speaks, to cherish the unconscious currents that guide the heart, and to remember that the most profound understanding begins when we dare to listen to the dreams, the symbols, and the secret longings that Freud showed us lie at the core of our humanity. Their story closed not with certainty, but with possibility, a testament to the power of empathy, patience, and the courage to uncover what we once thought unknowable. And in that possibility, they both found what they'd been seeking: freedom to want, freedom to feel, and the freedom to be seen.